As with all Allowing Love events, we're going to start by calling in the light. And I just do encourage all of us, if we feel comfortable, to close our eyes just now. And I do encourage you to open your heart and to be aware of the love that's already present. I know that I'm feeling touched and inspired by the love that comes with each one of you caring enough to be present today. And it is in this loving, this open-heartedness, this embracing of our humanity that we show up in this moment. And we anchor a conscious intention of the highest good, really allowing our humanity, all levels of our beingness, to be filled and blessed with the light, with that highest essence of love, with that greatest essence of unconditional loving that we could call the Holy Spirit or Source. And we just allow this love, this light, this energy so fully into our bodies, into all levels of our consciousness. And we do ask that we allow this energy to support us in letting go, just relaxing, kind of feeling really comfy in our beautiful bodies. And we do ask that this beautiful presence of loving, of light, serve to clear any karma, negativity, imbalance, disease, just anything less than pure love, love with a capital L. We ask that that be done. And we're just so grateful to be here at this time. For all that's in us right now, we allow and we just make space for it. Any discomfort, any challenge, any thoughts, any doubts, any feelings, we just welcome and make space for it all, as we set a clear intention of the highest good for all of humanity, for the planet at this time, for all of this, for the highest good. And so it is. So I am profoundly touched that all of you are here, and I want to anchor this event into a clear intention. Most of you are familiar with Allowing.Love events. You're a part of the Allowing.Love community, but I just want to quickly reference the energy and the container that I intend to support here, which is that Allowing.Love means allowing our soul, allowing our highest good, and allowing our humanity, really allowing that love to come in to humanity. So it has been really on point for me to serve whoever is called to open to this question of, can we really be a connected, spiritual, loving being and really take action, really allow that loving down into this level? Is that a thing? So first of all, I would like to invite one of my friends, my good friends, Malaika, to speak with us. I only asked her to do this share yesterday or the day before, and I'm so grateful that automatically she was like, absolutely. I'm petrified, but absolutely. She has a master's in spiritual psychology. She is a writer, an actor, and a creator. And more than any of that, I have been profoundly inspired by the real conversations she has been having with people in her life. I'm going to let her speak. I'm so grateful that you've agreed to share a little of you and your moment in life at this time. Malaika, please share with us however you're called, honey. This is Malaika.
Hi. Thank you so much, Zoe, for inviting me. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah.
Really well. Thanks, honey.
Yeah, I'm very nervous. I have no idea what I'm sharing necessarily. But that's what I find for me in my life is as long as I call it love. That's the first name, it's love. And so from a place of loving, I've been, I guess, an activist my whole life in some way. You know, my mother was, I'm named after a prominent activist daughter. So there's that, although I never really called myself an activist, there was always something in me that was calling me forward. And I could see it, I could feel it. I didn't know how to do it, and I still don't necessarily. I mess up a lot. And so that requires of me a lot of self-love, a lot of self-love. What's coming present for me is a recent experience of mine, actually. I have a writing partner, and prior to all of this, I have a white writing partner. And prior to all of this, we wrote a TV pilot that deals with systemic racism from a very interesting perspective. And we completed that sometime April-ish, I think. And that was before all of the protests and before all of everything. We got notes from writers group. And we got reamed. They hated it. Oh, you can't say this. You can't do this. People will not hear you. You have to tone it way down. And we really took that hit hard. Because there was something that was calling us that was greater, that we were hearing, and that we would not back down from. But we did do like 5 or 6 rewrites in 2 weeks or something ridiculous. We're gonna do it, we're gonna do it. And then the protests happened. And now we're having a very different response to that show. And I find that really interesting. And I ask myself, like, what is that? What is that for you? What does that mean? And how is this a demonstration of loving in action, or your activism, or your loving being activated? Like, how is it a demonstration of that? And what comes present for me is that it's always about something greater to which I'm called. For some reason, it comes easily to me, but it is always uncomfortable. It is never, ever comfortable. This now for me is not comfortable. It's the first time I've, shared in group, or that I've said yes to sharing in group. But I got the text, and immediately I heard something greater. Yes, absolutely. What am I doing? And so for me, it's always that. And I mess up a lot. And, I clean up my messes as best I can. But I keep going, knowing that there's just something greater calling, and it's always love. It's always love, and there's always an expansion in that loving, and my understanding of loving, my allowing loving. But at bottom, it's always love. So thank you for allowing me to share what was present, and yeah.
Just so incredible, Malaika, and I just thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for those beautiful words, and thank you for all that you're doing on the planet at this time. So I now have the very happy job for me to introduce a relatively new friend to my life. He's been a part of my spiritual family for a long time, but a closer good friend of mine in more recent moments, and I'm introducing Dr. Babalola Chris-Rotimi to you. And Dr. Babalola was invited to be part of a conversation that some of us in a spiritual community were having around how do we support our spiritual community to move forward in principles perhaps of anti-racism. And the way that Babalola showed up in this conversation in this community just blew me away. So I want to share that he is a spiritual and life empowerment coach. He holds a master's in spiritual psychology and a doctorate in transpersonal psychology. He was born in Nigeria, now lives in Houston. And while Babalola has experienced racism in various forms throughout his life, he has made a peace pact with himself to allow people within his orbit to be or become as racist, as bigoted, or as loving as they choose to be. And it was more than beautiful words that inspired me with Babalola. It really was this energy of loving, of acceptance, and of activism in the same space, in the same breath, that really inspired me. So over to you, my friend Babalola. We're all just very grateful to have you with us. So please share, my friend. Oh, and you will need to hit the unmute button, it seems. Voila.
Hello, my friends. Can you all hear me well? Good. Okay. All right. Thank you, Zoe, for the invitation and for the introduction. And thanks, Malaika, for your opening speech. I really appreciate it and I enjoy it. I am blessed to be given this opportunity to come rub minds with all of you here today. First, a little bit of myself by way of background. I was born and raised in Nigeria, and I was raised by a father who didn't leave us much of a physical inheritance by the time he died. And one of the reasons for that is because my father spent his entire life and fortune fighting for people within my small little town who could not fight for themselves. I mean, my father was that man in the village who would take the king and his entire council to court. He lost a lot of these court battles because the people who are in the courts are the friends of the kings and the powerful chiefs. But that was never a discouragement for my father. Almost every single one of those court battles he waged on behalf of other people. And I remember hearing, even as a little boy, hearing his wives, my mother was one of 2 wives, really, really riding his ass about why he has to spend all the family money fighting useless causes. But he was adamant. He said, somebody has to fight for these people. If not me, look around. Who else is doing it? And that taught me some very, very valuable lessons. The biggest one of which is that sometimes in life, the joy, the victory is in the fight, not necessarily in winning the fight. When victory comes, we take it. And of course, we fight with an intention to prevail. But even when we don't prevail, we don't go home feeling disgraced or feeling like we wasted our time or anything like that. So that's a lesson that has stayed with me over all these years. And by the way, eventually my father died at a very ripe old age of 92. Before he died, he told us that he needed us to bury him as soon as he died. He did not want to be taken to the mortuary, which is really common in our place because by the time we grew up to be of age, everybody has left home because we've gone afar to find fortune, for jobs, for marriage, everything. So it wasn't like in his day when everybody lived in the village. So if your father died right now, you could bury him in 5 minutes. But then he left that instruction and we were not quite clear how to carry out that instruction. But he helped us by dying on a Friday evening, such that we were able to lay him in state that Friday night and take him to church for funeral services the following Saturday. And the big thing I want to point out in that little story is that normally when we have funerals are very big in African culture, really, really big. So that's one of the reasons we keep the dead people in the mortuary so that we can send out notices and people can travel to fill up the church and show your family some love. So my father died on Friday. We took him to church on Saturday, of course, because we're the family, so we start way up front. When the service was over and we're coming out, I was overwhelmed because there was standing room only in terms of how packed the church was. And then people were coming to us one by one telling us, yeah, we never told you this when your father was alive, but we want you to know we are very grateful for all those battles that's waged on behalf of people, many of whom he didn't know. So that was really, really big for me. And I bless his memory for that. So now let's talk about me. So I came into the United States at the age of 31. I actually left Nigeria on my 31st birthday. So what that means is that I came in here fully grown, college degree, about 7 or 8 years of post-university work experience. So as a real grown adult, married with a child. And I read a lot about the United States before I came. I saw a lot of movies, so I have some very well-formed preconceived notions of what life is like over here. I had very, very little illusions. I mean, but like in any instance of somebody relocating from one place to another, there's always going to be that thing that shocks you, right? So I experienced my first shock on my first job, actually, which was in a grocery store. I was a grocery store attendant, and I worked the night shift. And one of my best friends on that night shift, he was a white police officer in the Houston area, Houston, Texas. So he comes into my store for coffee, for donuts, and we struck up a lot of conversations. So one night, my friend walks into the store, was looking really down and gloomy, and I went up to him. I said, "So Sarge, what's up? What's going on? You don't look too happy." And he told me, "Yeah, this is one of my worst days in law enforcement." I said, "So how's that?" He said, "Because early in my shift this evening, I busted a white boy with a bag full of hard drugs. And as I'm cuffing him and putting him in my patrol car, he told me point blank that I was just wasting my time, because by the time I finish doing my paperwork at the precinct, he will be on his way back home." So when I told him, "You do you, I'll do me, I have to do what I have to do. It's my job." So he took this boy to the precinct. He's booking him. And by the time he completed the paperwork, just as predicted that by the boy, officer is walking back into his squad car, and the boy is sitting at the back of his father's car, waving at the officer as they were driving away. And that was a very significant early American experience for me, because one, it was an awakening that, oh, so there are different levels of society are treated differently by law enforcement, number one. Number two, and even more significant for me, is the fact that I suddenly realized, so despite everything else I might have heard, it's not quite every white policeman in America that enjoys booking only the black kids and allowing all the white kids go free. Because here's a living, breathing white officer who did what he knew he had to do. But the system, the legal system, did him wrong. And he felt it so very viscerally. I mean, I had to be consoling and comforting a white officer. So that was really big eye-opener for me. But then again, I've experienced other forms of discrimination even before coming to the United States. So back in Nigeria, all of us are black men, right? Black men and black women. But there are still discrimination based upon class, social class. And actually the bigger one is based upon your ethnicity, tribalism. So within that geographical entity called Nigeria, and I'm sure this is true for almost every single country, there are some elements of it in the United States too. People still know where you're from. either from your tone of voice or from your name, or somehow they can tell, and they still discriminate on that basis. So that's a big deal in Nigeria. So I grew up in a Nigeria where, for instance, somebody from my tribe with a doctorate degree may end up working for somebody from a different tribe who does not even have a college degree, but just happens to be born into that tribe. That's discrimination right there, okay? So coming to America and finding discrimination based upon skin color was not really a big deal for me. I could handle it. I handled it where I came from, and I know I could handle it here. As a matter of fact, one big difference between here and there is more often than not, over there, they could get away with it. Here, sometimes they could get away with it, but if I have a very strong, solid case, and I find a real badass lawyer who's willing to work on my behalf, yeah, that's a pretty good chance they will not be able to get away with it. So that was that. Now, let's talk about my own personal, direct, first experience with policemen in America. I think it was back in 1996, I believe. I was barely 1 year in the country. So myself, my wife, my little girl, and one of our family friends, a Hispanic gentleman, we went to Austin, Texas, the capital, to attend actually a John Roger and staff visit, because they come to Texas once a year. So it's like an annual pilgrimage for many of us here in Texas. So we went over there, and by the time the event was over, we decided we were not going to spend the night in Austin. So let's drive back to Houston. It's just about 2.5 hours drive. But this time, my Hispanic friend turned over the keys to the car to me and made me drive. So I'm happy. Hey, I'm living the dream in America. My wife is in the back, my daughter is sleeping, and I am driving this car from Austin to Houston. My first intrastate travel outside of Houston. So that was really exciting. We're talking about maybe 11 p.m. at this point. And so in the course of the journey, suddenly I saw the blue police light rolling behind me. And I turned to my Hispanic friend and I told him, is that me? And his response was really cute. He said, why don't you look around and see if there's any other car? Then maybe it could be them. Well, we're the only ones on the road. So we had a good laugh about that. And I pulled over. The officer came. Of course, he already called for backup. So in no time at all, a second officer joined him. So he knocked on the window. I rolled it down. So my friend was coaching me all this while. So, okay, don't panic. No sudden movements. Just stay calm, okay? It will be over shortly. So rolled down the window, greeted us. We wanted to know if there was any reason why I was going above the speed limit. And I told him, no, officer, okay. Demanded my driver's license. I gave it to him. And then he walked over to confer with his friend, and they went into the car to run my driver's license. Now keep in mind, my license was less than a year old. So I know I don't have any record, good or bad. So they were not going to find anything. So they went over, I did what they had to do, came back, gave me a ticket for speeding, and wished out a safe journey back to Houston. Now, what's significant is while this experience was going on, I had no fear because I knew I had no record to be afraid of, number one. Number two, my biggest concern was that this may negatively impact my friend who rented the car. So as soon as the officers left, that's the first thing I wanted to clear with them. I said, I'm so sorry, this is going to ruin you. He said, no. It's all about you. You are the driver. Remember, they didn't ask for my driver's license. They only asked for your driver's license. So it's on you, dude. So don't apologize to me. So that was a relief. Now, there's something I want to point out in that experience. Most Black men, African-American men, maybe more specifically, African descendants of slaves, so people who have been here before people like us came by choice, their encounter with that particular police officer will probably have been totally different, because there's a chance they have a record somewhere that may show up the moment the officer gets back into his car. Now let's talk about that record that a contemporary African-American male of my age at that time might have. I've lived long enough in Texas now for over 25 years to know that the system is really designed, in my opinion, to build up such records for this community. How is that? I read in the newspapers, I see on TV stories about, for instance, a white kid picking on a black kid in elementary school, sometimes in pre-K, you know, N-word, all kinds of pushing their buttons. And the black kid will report to the teacher. Nothing significant really gets done. The black kid will report to the parents, who will come and complain to the principal. Nothing significant really gets done, at least to the extent that the white kid continues to torment the black kid. Then the day comes when the black kid has had enough, and he hauls off and sucker punches the white kid. Guess what? Almost 9 times out of 10, either the school resource officer is called in or a real city police officer comes in and puts the 5 or 7-year-old black kid in handcuffs. Right there and then, that guy's or girl sometimes criminal record has been opened, and it potentially will follow them through the rest of their lives. So just to put in perspective, the confidence I had that I didn't have any record because I just come into the country versus people who have been here for hundreds of years and their relatives and their ancestors. And then additionally also, I didn't have any personal animosity against policemen, and I still don't, because I've not had any serious adverse experience with them. But most African-American men that I make friends with, that we discuss a lot, they really can't say the same thing. For the simple reason that many of them, they've witnessed their father or their mother being really, really roughened up by cops. And sometimes they've witnessed their best friend being shot to death by cops. Now, watching your parents being roughened up, or watching your friend or your mentor being killed on the street is not really as painful as knowing that the person who did it is going to walk because for the most part in the Black community, it's just known that, oh my God, they've done it again, and nothing is going to happen. And pretty good chance nothing will happen. In recent history, out here in the Houston area, a Hispanic man went to a restaurant with his family for dinner. They were celebrating something. At some point, there was an altercation between him and the white man, not the policeman. They got in a fight. So the white man had the Hispanic man in a chokehold. The police wife or the white man who was holding the Hispanic man in a chokehold came out and pinned the Hispanic man down while the husband held this man until he died. And the moment I saw it on TV, I just said, nothing significant is going to come out of this. I mean, I just knew it in my bones. Of course, eventually, the white man was arrested. He was tried. His wife was arrested. The wife was let go. Okay. She didn't come there to break up the fight. She didn't show up there to handcuff and restrain the Hispanic man. She helped her husband murder him in the parking lot. But she was found totally, absolutely blameless. But that's not the end of the story. She lost her job at her precinct and drove over to the next precinct, and she was rehired as a policeman. So these are the pains that we are trying to express when you see people see us. And when I say us, let me be clear. I'm talking about us, black, white, brown, yellow, because I see the video footage of the protest and I could see it's not a black thing at this time. It's people of all races. Remember, I told you the story of my white police friend who came into my store feeling bad that another white boy walked. And by the way, usually when you engage with some people, and not always white, even some black people, on this issue of police brutality and systemic inequality in the legal system, they will tell you, well, go and look at the statistics. Let me tell you something about the statistics. The statistics is only as compiled, okay? So that night, when my police friend took that white boy to the precinct, you bet there's no record that that boy was ever there. No record. If he were a black boy, even if they would let him go, the record will still stand 9 times out of 10. As a matter of fact, I don't know, as many of us as may be monitoring the Innocent Project, many black people have been freed with the assistance of the Innocent Project. Many of them have been sitting in death row on life sentences, 35, 45 years for crimes they did not commit. And for the most part, the reason they ended up being sent to prison was because they stubbornly, absolutely refused to plead guilty to something they knew they were innocent about. And now, 30, 35, 45 years later, God raised this army of people who spend their time, their resources, fighting on their behalf. So many of them are being released now. But guess what? Releasing them from prison that you see on TV is only the beginning of the journey for many of them. That's a secondary journey where they still have to go and fight for the conviction to be expunged from their records. It doesn't always happen automatically. They still have to go fight for that. And by the way, in many states, there is no restitution for them. So you spend 35 years of your life behind bars because you were tried by an all-white jury. You were brought in by a white police officer, and you were appointed a defender by the court whose primary interest is in pushing you towards a plea deal so that they can go do something more fun. Now they say, okay, yeah, evidence shows you are innocent. Okay, open the prison gate, walk into the society. To do what? Maybe no college diploma. Even if you have a college diploma, who's going to hire you with a prison record? Because every time you fill employment application, you are asked, do you have any record? You just have to say yes. So you are going to need to be allowed to even get in front of the hiring manager before you can explain that, yeah, I spent 35 years for something I didn't do, but thank God I'm out now. more often than not, you are weeded out upfront. So these are people without skills, without income, and yet we expect them to be very productive, law-abiding members of society from that point on. How? Just how? So these are the things that we're up against. So special thanks to all men and women of goodwill, irrespective of their colors, who have been out there fighting this fight, online, phone calls, even having casual conversations with their family members. Everything counts. And I personally appreciate it. Now, there's an element of this that is actually more subtle than the ones we see on TV. And I've experienced some forms of that. So there was a time I bought a second house. So I rented out my first house. Now, my tenant started defaulting on his rent. So I gave him a month, gave him 2 months, gave him 4 months. He still could not make good. So I had no choice than to go to court to process eviction. Well, I wasn't going to spend money on a lawyer. I mean, having lost 4 months of rent already. So I just went online, did some lazy Google search, and did what I thought I understood to do and filed the papers. So the day came when they called the case. So I was in court representing myself. I walked up to the judge, and he's pointing out to me some errors in my filing. And I was just getting really overwhelmed at this point. And I said, you know, please, what do I need to do to say, stop? Do I look like a lawyer? White judge. I said, no, Your Honor. Okay, here are your papers. Next case. So I went back home, did further research, and then I realized what I did wrong. So now I'm going to have to pay the court cost twice. I'm going to have to file the papers and wait for another month for my case to come up. Keep in mind, I've already lost 4 months of rent. And that dude and his family are going to continue to live in my house until this whole process is over. So next time my case came up in court, I'm sitting in the gallery watching the proceeding. The case before mine was a white homeowner who was having a very similar situation with his tenant. And the judge in charge was that same judge who shoots me out of his courthouse. But guess what? This white homeowner made the exact same mistake I made. And this judge removed his glasses and spent 10 minutes coaching this white homeowner on what he needed to do so that he wouldn't pay court cost twice and so that his case would be expedited. Those were the things I was going to please ask him to please tell me that he wouldn't tell me. But it gets even more fun. The more he tried to explain the processes to this white homeowner, the more the white homeowner got furious at him, the judge. And at this point, he's yelling and using curse words. And the judge is very calmly talking to this man like a human being. That was all I wanted him to do with me. Talk to me like a human being. He took it all in stride. Told the guy, yes, I can understand your frustration. And I'm sitting there thinking, but you were not even willing to listen to my frustration. So anyway, so I witnessed that. And I just shook my head. Of course, they called me. I'm sure he doesn't remember me from all the cases he's handled. Everything was in order this time, so I prevailed. And then I walked out of the courthouse. But I'm driving home thinking, yeah, this is the systemic racism that we are still talking about. It's not as in your face, but it is still there. And also, there is an unconscious component to it too that I would like to share. At the beginning of my career as a software developer, I had a female white manager, very fantastic human being. not racist. I can tell you that, okay? But something significant happened. I made a mistake in one of my codes, but the mistake was caught by the QA team before we shipped the product. But my boss was so furious at me that she did not talk to me for about 2 solid weeks. I mean, I was literally in the doghouse on the job. But I'm just thinking to myself, yeah, Alison is mad, but maybe if the table were reversed, if I'm in her shoes, I probably would feel the same way. So don't take it personally. Just give it time. And with time, our relationship normalized again, and we lived happily ever after, until a white colleague of mine at my level made a blunder. But this time, his blunder was so bad that the product had already been shipped to our end client. So my case was caught in-house, so there was no scandal. But this had already been shipped out before it was detected. So naturally, the dude was distraught. I mean, he practically wanted to die, just like I felt when I made my own mistake, except that his is on a really, really bigger scale now. To sit down and watch my boss, who wouldn't talk to me for 2 weeks, walk over to this other boy and tell him, what's your problem? It's not the end of the world. Come on, brighten up. Okay, let's go to lunch. I mean, really treated him in a way I would have prayed she treated me. But remember, this is somebody I know to not be racist. So let's keep that as part of the conversation. But I'm talking about the unconscious bias that still seeps out even when we're not aware of it. I'm sure if she watches this video, she will remember, and she probably will say, wow, I didn't see it that way. And she will be right. But I saw it that way. So these are the things that we're talking about when we protest. And also, I came to find out through one of my former managers, a Black man this time, an African-American, not an immigrant, an African-American. So we're sitting in the office one day and we're discussing slavery and the slave experience and all of that. I thought we were going to have a back and forth, a conversation. But about 15 minutes into the thing, I realized I'm the only one talking, and everybody was dead silent and listening with rapt attention. So I said, okay, wait a minute, what am I doing wrong? Why is nobody else talking? And he and the other Black guy in the group said, we don't know what they're talking about. Nobody taught us these things. These things that are coming out of your mouth as our ancestral experience, we don't know. So I brought that up because I found that with the recent development with George Floyd, many of my white friends on Facebook and other social media are coming out to say, wow, we didn't know this. Yes, I know, because I have Black friends who didn't know this either. A lot of the videos that I've been posting on my page lately, many of my friends go, wow, this is new. Yeah, I learned a long time ago that it's new to many of you. So that's why I'm happy to share it. So there are many of these things that are happening that people are simply not aware of. And at the same time, though, I also have some other African-American friends whose hatred for policemen in particular and law enforcement in general runs so deep that you could tell they probably have some of it encoded into their DNA. And I have a theory about how that were possible. So think, for instance, back to what, 1690 or 1724. So all members of the family were slaves to this white family. So your father is the one you fear most next to God in hierarchy of authority in your household. So all of you are sleeping peacefully in your room, in your house one day, and then a group of white men come barging through the door. They grab your father from the bed. And they take him outside. So you are watching through the window. You are watching this man whom you fear and revere being hung on a tree in front of your house. And then they set him on fire. So they set him on fire. How? So how in the world would that boy ever forget that? How is he not going to share that story? The pain, the everything with his children and his children's children. And I would guess at some point, some of them will start telling themselves, I'm going to get them back. I'm going to do to them what they did to my father, to my grandfather, to my mother. So if a boy who's been so programmed, so wired, has the slightest encounter with a policeman, the chances of it ending in tragedy is so astronomically high that all people will be saying is, if only he had not resisted, not realizing that at that point, it's not even just about him and this policeman. It's him being convinced that he's doing something for his entire generation. And this policeman standing in front of him represents every other person, police and non-police, who have gotten away with any form of oppression to people is related to or he knows. So this is why we protest. This is why we fight. This is why people are on the street. Now, do we all have to go on the streets? No, not necessarily. Everybody protests the best way they know how to. And every form of protest is valid as far as I'm concerned. Some people protest by writing letters. Some will go to speak in front of Congress. God bless them. But some people only understand the language of the street. No matter what dangers lie ahead, no matter the chance that they could be the next guy killed by a stray bullet, they are still going to go out there. Because some of them have told themselves, what am I doing in the world anyway? What are my prospects? Now, when I started my talk, I mentioned me coming from Nigeria with my degree and everything. Part of what that means is I came into the United States with a very solid game plan and with a very solid background preparation. So I knew exactly where I want to go, what direction I want to encourage my children to go towards, and all of that. It's set up. And with the grace of God, it's working for me. So whether I'm experiencing racism covertly or overtly, I do not allow that to derail me. Because I know there have always been racist and there will always be racist, no matter what. And of course, thanks to God, I also have a background of spiritual teachings and practices that I've been following for getting close to 40 years now. So my feet are very, very well planted, both within myself and in my external world. so I can take a lot. My focus is very clear. Now, somebody else, again, who doesn't have, even have friends who immigrated from Nigeria, but who do not have this other aspect of solid spiritual footing and practices and psychology and everything. Some of them also struggle with law enforcement, with complying and things like that. So people come at this from different backgrounds, different perspectives. And I just make room for everybody to be who they are and what they are. And for the most part, my activism is actually directed towards creating an opening to let people know that I may not be a descendant of a slave in America, but I feel the pain as deeply as somebody who is. That, and even when I do not feel the pain as deeply, if you want to talk, I am somebody you can come talk to, because I will listen to you, I will hold for you, and whenever you are ready to make the shift, I'll be there for you, because my life is a series of making this shift, keeping my eyes on my goal and constantly working towards it. Sometimes I miss the mark and then I course correct. But when I come across somebody who's not even willing to listen to me, just think, let's just go get guns and kill all of them. God bless you. You can go that way. I'm not going that way, but I'm not going to stand in front of you because I don't want you to shoot me either. Okay? People have all kinds of experiences, and we all come to the world to do different things. I recognize that. Somebody calls it the soul's code. So if it is in your soul's code to be a martyr, I'm not going to stop you. I'm talking about being a martyr. I watched a video of a black lady, Candace Owens, I believe her name is. Excuse me. Talking about George Floyd not being a martyr. And the first thing that came to my mind is, does this lady even realize that, for the most part, a martyr presents themselves to be sacrificed for a cause? George Floyd did not present himself to be murdered by that policeman. So if anything about George Floyd could be attributed to martyrdom, it was an accidental martyrdom. The dude was hustling to survive, okay? He wasn't looking to be killed in the full glare of a video. That just happened. And because that happened, this is now happening. So this is where we are. And I'm grateful to God for the opportunity to live through this, to assist myself. I mean, talking about those first few days of seeing the George Floyd video, boy, I mean, it coincided with the week I had to go back to the office to start working from the office. I was working from home previously. So what that did to me is indescribable, because I'll be sitting in the office and the tears will just start flowing at the most awkward moments. So in order to put on a brave face, come on, this is the office environment. Don't make everybody feel sorry for you. Don't make them start coming over to ask you what's going on. So I had to swallow the tears and start crying inside. I don't know how many of you know this, but when you cry inside, it gives you very bad headache. So that's why people who can cry, people like me, they'll just let it flow when they're in the comfort of their home. Sometimes I sit down to do my spiritual exercise and it turns out to be 2 hours of non-stop tears. Yeah, so it was really, really tough, very challenging, but thank God, as you go further and further from it, it gets less and less. But every once in a while, it just still comes up. And it's like, as I watched that video, it stopped being me witnessing the knee of one white man on the neck of one black man. It became an all-encompassing experience of feeling the pain of all oppressive white knees on the necks of all Black people. So it became more symbolic in a very poignant way than just literally watching two people engage in that experience. So that's how it felt for me. And I'm grateful that it seemed to have woken all of us up, different colors, different races, different sexes, everybody say, no, this is enough. I'm really, really grateful. I honor everybody that has done anything whatsoever. However small you think it is, it counts. I want you to know. And as I wrap up, there's also this challenge that I sometimes feel about discussing these things in groups, because despite the fact that I'm a Black man, when I'm in a group of predominantly descendants of African slaves in America, just like my white friends watch their mouth around me, I watch my mouth around those people. Because I know the smallest thing that comes out of my mouth with the purest of intentions could land in such a bad way that everybody in the room could just stand up and say, oh, really? And that could cost me all of my friends. So when I see some of my white friends trying to tread gingerly, I really want you to know that I applaud you for even trying. And no matter how hard we try, I know this for myself, we're going to stick one foot and sometimes both feet in our mouth from time to time. That doesn't have to be the end of the world. And that doesn't have to be the end of the struggle for us. Because when that happens, I simply tell myself, oh, sorry, guys, that didn't quite come out the way I intended it. If they allow me to clarify, I will clarify. But if they won't, that's okay. I'll let it slide at that time. There will be more opportunities later that may potentially make them see, oh, okay, he's not trying to say he's superior to us, because I'm not superior to any of them. I just happen to have a different background history than them, a more solid footing in terms of preparation for advancement, for taking the best advantage of this country. Because the truth is, there is a lot to take advantage of in the United States of America. I am one of the people who still call it God's own country, because I'm convinced beyond the shade of a doubt that this land was ordained by God for freedom. I know that from my own personal experience and watching my family grow, expand, watching my kids thrive. I know that. But at the same time, I know that opportunity is not yet equally distributed within the population. And the work to keep fighting to make it more evenly distributed lies as heavily on me as it does on my African American friends too. They also have their own role to play, but I just won't demand it of them. I'll hold the space. And it equally falls on my white friends too. And again, I will not demand it of them. I'll hold the space. So that's my approach. That's my take. And I think I should take a break at this point and allow Ms. Zoe to step in. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to share with you. Thank you.
I know we're all more than clapping in our hearts. We are just so grateful for your vulnerability, for your courage, for that. Thank you so much. I did want to check in with Kasim from Nigeria, but it looks like he's been having a problem with his Wi-Fi, so he is not present in the group. But if anyone sees him jump back on, please let him know, as I would love him to share. I would love to check in with Malaika to see if you have anything to share, or if you have any questions to put on the table. And then if there are any questions from the group, I know I have one, but if there are any questions from the group, please be aware, and please feel free to raise your hand electronically if you can, or just chat that you have a question if you don't know how to raise your hand electronically, because we then we'll open it up for questions. But Malaika, I would love to hear from you, sweetheart.
Well, there was something that sort of came up, and through your sharing, Babalola, it was your beautiful, vulnerable sharing, because I feel that pain, and I experience those tears in my heart, and you know, the racism. My mother is unable to speak. Many of my elders are unable to speak right now. There's just this visceral pain and this questioning, is this going to be different? And as much as I can say, did you see all those people out there protesting with us this time? It's going to be different. They don't want to talk about it. But I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to invite the conversation for whoever wants to join in. There's a ministry and purpose I have in that I do not clearly understand necessarily. There's an analogy about allowing loving, and racism. Or there's an analogy about digging a hole in your neighbor's yard and racism. So it's something like, if you dig a hole in your neighbor's yard, you don't say sorry. You fill the hole. So in terms of activism, the awareness that you dug the hole in your neighbor's yard is allowing love. The I'm sorry is allowing love. The praying is allowing love. The listening is allowing love. The action, the activism, the activating of that love, to me, is filling the hole. And that's going to look differently for everybody, but it's filling the hole. And so that's what came up for me in your sharing, Babalola. I too am so grateful for so many people that are even willing to enter into the conversation, including myself. It's easy for me to do it on Facebook. I don't have to see people. It's more difficult to do it in person, particularly being in another group where I am among, so few Black people. It's stretching me in new and different and gorgeous ways. And, thank you again, Zoe. Thank you. That's it.
Just thank you so much, both. And I've just asked Kasim, he's back, if you would be open to sharing. Oops, I think his Wi-Fi must be challenging. I think he's just been, oh no, there he is.
Thank you.
Kasim, my friend.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm very happy, and I really enjoy Dr. Babalola sharing. I think it's an experience for me. But what you share in Nigeria is, yes, it is what is happening and is still happening. To me, from my own perspective, I believe that thing called racism is everywhere in a particular pattern, a particular form. It's just like there must be an identity and identification. So thank you very much, Dr. Babalola, for your sharing. I really did gain a lot from you. God bless you. And my prayer is that God will use you to do more and more things for people over there. Thank you so much.
Kasim, thank you. Babalola, if you have anything.
Yes. Thank you, Kasim. I really appreciate that. Full disclosure, so Kasim is based in Lagos, Nigeria. That is the city I lived before I came to the United States. And we know each other very well. So he's my very good friend. So thanks for that contribution. Yeah. It's gonna be here for a while, so we might as well share ideas on how best to cope with it, how to transcend it. And again, I just can't emphasize enough that we have, as we are doing it for ourselves, we have to give room and allow time for other people to do it for themselves. I think an analogy that comes to mind for me is, so if you're a husband, you need to be at your desk at 6 a.m. So maybe you wake up at 4 a.m. Your wife and kid are still sleeping. Do you go wake them up at 4 a.m. if she doesn't need to get to work until 8 and the kid doesn't need to get to school until 9? So there's no point in them waking up at 4 when you are awake. So you wake up and do your thing. Trust each of them to wake up at the right time for them to get to where they need to get to. Or if this arrangement is, okay, honey, on your way out of the door, come wake me up. Then when you're leaving the house, you go wake your wife up. So that's the way I see it. So allow people to wake up at their own pace. If they have questions, you examine it with them. And usually on this particular topic of racial equality and everything, when people talk to me, I want to let them know upfront that I don't have the answer. I have some experiences that I would like to share with you. And I'm always blessed when people also share back their own experience with me. So we enter into a dialogue. So I'm going to find at least one thing to take away from your sharing. And I hope you do find at least one tiny little thing to take away from my experience. And then we'll become the richer for it. So this is my approach to this. And it's a journey that we're all on. Thank you, Zoe.
Yeah. Thank you, Babalola, so much. And I just again want to thank you for being so heartfelt. And as I've been talking with folks from, we have someone that's starting to share their screen, so I'm just going to stop that. I just wanted to as I've been talking with other folks, other people in the Black community, I'm often hearing that it takes time to build trust. And I'm just so honored that you have come into this space, this 95% white space, and trusted us so fully with your stories, with your heart, with your tears. Because I do experience that if we're able to really feel more at this time, that perhaps we may experience that we are part of humanity. And if we were truly part of humanity, there is an openness, a calling, an opportunity that we may have inside to really be a part of what's going on right now. So thank you for the emotion. Thank you for the vulnerability. Thank you for the humanity, because it just invites me more fully to experience this through your eyes. And I just, I can't say it in any other words. I'm just so grateful for your trust, for your welcoming of us. And I want to know if there are any questions. Just to piggyback on both Malaika and Babalola, there is no showing up in this way without making mistakes. I'm putting my foot in my mouth, left, right, and center, saying stuff that I did not yet know was just really not cool as we move forward in an objective way. So, Adam, I would love you to share, my friend. Please ask a question. Please be with us.
Okay, thank you. And Zoe, thank you for holding this event. And I appreciate it. It's wonderful. And Dr. Babalola, thank you. I felt like I was with you on every step of that journey. And my heart was wide open as you shared. So thank you for that. So something came forward for me, and I'd like you to kind of maybe speak to this, and I'll give it a little context. But that was the peace pact that you made early on. That really stood out to me, and I will share that while I know there's no way I can understand all these things, I have had a unique experience, and I understand much. And I was taken in by a family of color when nobody else would take me in. So it certainly changed my perspective just a little. And so what I wanted to share, and one of the things was, and I experienced enough, Dr. Babalola, to know that what you were saying was true. I have seen the injustice. I have seen people treated differently over and over again because of the color of their skin or because they were different. And it was always sad to me, and it always hurt. And I've had the experience of working hand in hand with people behind bars in very intimate processes. And many times a Black friend would be sharing so deeply, and I sensed the pain. They were holding on to the pain of everyone. And it, it hurt, gunshots before they were 5 and something. It's no wonder they behaved badly. Was that really? Sorry, but so yes. So my question has to do with, or something I'd like you to speak to, is, I've had the privilege to be able to march. I've made a commitment to support small businesses, Black-owned businesses, only not because it's the answer, but because it's something, right? And but what I found is that, because I'm very passionate about this issue, very passionate. What I found, though, but there was a little bit of an againstness. So my question is, how can I be for something and stand with passion at the same time, in the spirit that you did the peace pact, not have that againstness? Because I want to love. I think the answer is love. And would you speak to that, Dr. Babalola? I would really appreciate that.
Thank you, Adam. Actually, you came up with the answer to your own question by yourself. The answer is love. The depth of my loving for myself is the root of the loving I'm able to demonstrate to other people around me. So the energy is coming from that deep place of self-loving. It's a little difficult to describe, but it's very easy to experience. So I see people, I hear people say I don't see color. I do see color, and I do appreciate color. I like saying, yeah, that's my white friend, depending on the context of the conversation. And when somebody points at me and says, oh, that's my Black friend, I don't take offense at that. So it's all rooted in love for oneself, that now empowers us to extend the loving to the other person, even in the face of them going way out of their way to show us something that is nowhere near loving. But we still hold that space. So that's the space I stand in every time a policeman pulls me over. He may think because I'm Black, I am less than, but I do not share that opinion. And at the same time, I do not need to jump out of my car and bare my chest and tell him, do you want to shoot me? I'm not foolish enough to do that. There's a protocol that we are both supposed to follow. So long as we are doing it one step at a time, you turn on the light, I pull over and wait with my hands on the steering wheel. That is simple enough for me to do. I can do that all day, all night. You get to my window, you knock on the window, you signal for me to roll down. That is when I roll down, not a second before. Otherwise, you see I'm reaching for a gun, okay? So I just wait there. You come. Sometimes they greet, sometimes they don't. It doesn't make much difference to me. And I don't care how old or young the policeman is, I always address them with sir. My childhood friend in Nigeria, with whom I grew up from elementary school up until this day, the one thing that we used to get in a lot of fights over when we were younger adults was me saying sir to a Nigerian policeman. It just irritates him to no end. Don't you know that the moment you say sir to this jerk, he's going to start treating you like a jerk? I said, well, until the first one does that, I may share your opinion, but so far it's working for me. They come over, I address them as sir, and they address me back as sir. Everybody wins. So I don't have your experience and I can't speak to it. But at the same time, you're not going to stop me from treating them the way I prefer to treat them. So I was doing that before I came to the United States. So now getting here where there are laws, and potentially, if I'm lucky, somebody from the window of their house is recording the entire thing on video anyway. So I'm going to do the best I can to cooperate with them. I recognize that sometimes the average policeman has gone through a lot of stressful situations before that encounter with me. I just have to make that assumption for myself. If it turns out to be false, so be it. But if it is true, maybe the tone of my voice, my composure and everything will calm him down. Okay? Like, okay, so the officer pulls you over and is resting his hand on the butt of his gun. That doesn't faze me. Every single question you ask, I have an answer for. If I don't know the answer, I say, sorry, officer, I don't know the answer to that question. If you ask me to step out, I will step out. If you want my hand behind my back, I will put it behind my back. Why? I know I don't have any record to be afraid of. 2, I have a legion of lawyers to talk to. So you do your thing, take me to whatever, book me, I'll call my attorneys, and they will take it up with you and your attorney. So it's, again, I'm struggling to help you and all my other listeners understand that I bring something to this deal that is different from an average African-American male. I hope we all continue to understand that. I have some privileges. You know, people talk a lot about white privilege. Well, guess what? There is some black privilege too. So part of my black privilege is to come to Nigeria, to America with a bachelor's degree, and as soon as possible, go ahead to get a master's and a PhD. That is a privilege. I have many African-American friends who told me I'm wasting my money because that does not rank high on their hierarchy of need. But for me, it's like the minimum I have to get to before I say I'm done with schooling. That's just me. Cost a lot of money too. So when my friends are buying cars and buying more houses, I'm paying student loan. What they're doing is working for them. What I'm doing is working for me. Heck, I might be paying some of my student loans until I die. But thank God, I'm smart enough to make sure that my student loans come with only my name. So if I die, the loans die with me, okay? So I don't know if I'm responding to your question, but if you don't take anything from me, I want you to understand that it's all rooted in this place of loving that is inside of me that allows me to stomach what anybody is directing towards me. And then, of course, if I can say this, my wife is not here. I have about 27 years of marriage to draw from too. So there's no name a policeman is going to call me that my wife has not called me. I have about 26 years of fatherhood to draw from. There's nothing any little white boy or girl is going to say to me that one of my kids has not said to me before. So just bring it on. You just bring it on, I'll throw it away, and I'll continue to be who I am. So this is just me. Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. And you're sharing too. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So very beautiful, Adam. Thank you, Babalola. Danny, I am unmuting you, my friend. Please share.
Hi, Babalola. It's great to see you again and hear from you. It was so beautifully put, and I just really felt your pain, but not like I'm sure you felt it. You know, I've looked at this and talked to Kathleen about this before, this issue, and I'm sure a lot of it is genetic and deep in our subconscious. But the two things that I think of the most are the economics. If we could have a greater economic equality. I mean, I even think about it in terms of people in the Middle East who were resentful toward Americans and people from the West. I remember when I was 16, I took the L in Chicago, the subway, to my job, my summer job, vending at the ballparks. And I walked a few blocks to Comiskey Park, White Sox Park, by myself. And I'm a short guy. And 4 kids, black kids, came and asked me for money. And I didn't really have any. And they took my wallet. And I foolishly ran across the 4-lane road. And then I was punched in the mouth by some older kids. And they took my sunglasses and broke it. And later I thought, they live in these projects, and it's just that, of course, they have a need for money. And it's just like, it's a rough way to grow up. And of course, finances. And as far as the other factor I think of is education. You know, if people can get better educated, they might not necessarily have a mentality that's, you know, not to be critical here politically, but that MAGA mentality that just seems to feed againstness and separation. So I don't know, that's what I came up with, is if we can have better education and also better economics, better equality, not necessarily saying we need a socialistic society, but more of a balance where people are able to feed themselves and have health care and things of that nature. So if you have anything to say to that, that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Good to see you again. And I'm very happy you are making good progress. Godspeed, my friend. Yes, so talking about your experience with those black kids in Chicago, for instance, you'll be surprised to hear that those same black kids will probably do the same thing to me. Most probably. Why? Because at a certain level of poverty, people just want to hurt somebody. See, what some people don't understand about the burning and looting that have been triggered by these recent experiences, that number one, after we discount the burning and smashing that was instigated by government agents in order to give the protesters a bad name, I am sure there are pockets of those smashing and burning that were actually done by some of the protesters. And my experience of that is, it's not even that they need that flat screen TV, but that flat screen TV recognizes them finally being able to shake something at America. Because a Target store or any of the other places that they looted represented for them their symbols of the oppressive establishment that is holding them down. It could be right, it could be wrong, but many people in psychology will tell you perception is reality. So when people perceive that, yeah, our life has been made miserable and you guys continue to make millions and millions of profit from our poor, downtrodden community. Now, this one day, in all these 42 years of my existence, I get a chance to give you the Texas salute. I will give you the Texas salute. So that's why some of them do it. But again, yeah, let's think about it. When the white mob burned down what used to be called Black Wall Street, that was a real life experience when it happened. Now, when a black mob burns down a Target, they are causing pain, financial distress to that one store. But when that other mob burned down an entire 6-block radius of a property and businesses, many of whom went from being rich to living in poverty until they died, it's a different ball game entirely. And by the way, that Target store is going to reopen, and they're going to write off the losses in their taxes. But that black community that was destroyed was never allowed to rebuild. Just think about that. So no matter the extent of pain and suffering that that crowd was causing to the economy, it pales in comparison to what they have had to put up with. Oh, and by the way, the vast majority of the black people in that neighborhood in Ohio were arrested and prosecuted, even though they suffered the destruction of their entire community and businesses. I mean, recently I came across a video where the presenter was explaining the difference between white racism and black racism. I may not remember this correctly, but the sense I got is that in black racism, you may discriminate against a white person, but you really can't do much than thumb their nose at them or call them a name and walk off in a huff. But in white racism, it just doesn't like your name, your skin, and then there are consequential decisions that are going to be taken based upon that. So you are black, we're not going to give you the directorship. And I had first-hand experience of that. So my niece came to the US to study, got a master's, got a PhD, started this fantastic job. She's very well beloved and respected because she's really good. Now the directorate opened up and all our bosses sent out the signal to her, and some of them came to tell her, you are shooing for this position, so get ready. And then she wakes up one day and she was introduced to the new director. Do you know who the new director is? The new director is a white girl in her early 20s, whom my niece interviewed for her first job. And then my niece mentored her on the job. All she has is a bachelor's degree. My niece has a PhD in industrial engineering. They didn't fire my niece. They didn't make her quit, but they now made a protege a director. I mean, the white girl was so embarrassed that as soon as she got the official letter, the first thing she did was to run to my niece's office, lock the door, and practically at the point of tears, swore on her mother's grave that she did not have anything to do with this. She felt it that bad that she had to come and tell my niece, okay, listen, I don't even want to ask how you feel, but I just want you to know that I did not have anything to do with this decision. So that is some of how it feels in our community. So I'm sorry you experienced that with those boys. I guess there will always be some elements like that. And like I said, they will most probably do it to me too. So please don't take it too personally, and God bless you.
Yeah, I didn't take it personally, but it was just a little bit of a stun. God bless you too.
Really beautiful. So we do have a couple of questions, Babalola, Melissa and Terry. I am aware that this is your weekend, my friend, and you have a beautiful family to get back to. If you're called to answer these next couple of questions, I'd love you to hang for a little, but please, if you're called to go be with your family, we will wrap up.
For the purpose of today, this is my family.
Aww.
And I clear my schedule because I knew 1 hour or 90 minutes may not be able to cut it. So let's go.
Let's do this.
Thank you.
Melissa, you're unmuted, my friend. And thank you, Babalola. Incredible. Melissa.
Yeah. Hi, Babalola.
Melissa.
Hey, my name's Melissa. I'm also in Houston, Texas right now.
Hi, neighbor.
Hi, neighbor. I hope I get to meet you in person sometime when things clear up. Okay, so my question is, where I struggle is with the folks that would like to bring up the Candace Owens videos as a defense. And how I've been handling it lately has been just hearing, listening, giving the opportunity and the space for their sharing. There's a part of me inside that wants to be like, but don't you get it? Like, it's like, it feels like a block to me of like going down the trail of like, well, like how you just explained about Black Wall Street and the reasoning behind the looting is like, so I want to be able to do better in this circumstance if I can. And I'm wondering if you have any advice on that, or just how to handle that. Cause like, you know, my insides, my gut instinct is to just listen. And then there's another part of me that just wants to be like, wake up, you know, so I don't know what to do.
Thanks, Melissa. I guess pretty much everybody listening to you now has experienced that in one shape or form at one time or another. I certainly still experience that on an ongoing basis. So when I get to that place, all I do is just allow people the dignity of their opinion. I do not have to take it into myself. It is their opinion. Sometimes, any of you who read a lot of my Facebook postings, you'll find me getting some back and forth with some people. But I typically do that before I know the person's overall intention. Once it becomes clear to me that they are looking for a fight, that is when you hear me say, well, thanks for allowing me to judge with you. I'm complete at this point. Goodbye. Whatever they say beyond that point is on them. I'm gone to do other things. Because no matter how hard you try, there will always be people around you who are like that. And for the most part, from my experience, I have more Black people like that than even white people. You'll be surprised that Donald Trump has more impassioned supporters in Nigeria than here in the United States of America. Yeah, I have family and friends from Nigeria who will engage me, for hours on end about the virtues of Trumpism. So there's nothing, I'm old enough, I'm mature enough to know that there is absolutely nothing I can do to redeem such a person. Their redemption lies in their hands, just like mine lies in my hands. So when I engage you, and I get to that point of, oh, wait, we are beginning to talk past each other. It's time for me to exit the conversation. So that's all I can offer you. So I've built this reservoir within myself where anybody's opinion can never shake me about things that I know and I know. So I have a very active spiritual practice. I belong to a spiritual group. Many of the people who introduced me to this spiritual group that I belong to have already left the spiritual group, but I'm still here. Maybe their entire life purpose was to get me to come into this. So that purpose has been fulfilled, and I'm grateful and I honor them, but I'm making my choice to stay here. This is working for me. So similarly, when we're talking about these things about racism or no racism, I will listen. I have a very good clear voice, and I will always express myself. But when it starts getting to that point, yeah, it's time to exit. Because there are more positive, uplifting things for me to do anyway. So why will I want to spend the rest of my life trying to convince somebody who's equally adamant in their own way? So I usually yield to that kind of pressure. So I experience it like being a bamboo. When the strong wind comes, the bamboo may bend and may even touch the ground, but it's not going to break. And when the wind is gone, the bamboo comes back. But strong trees that we all admire, when strong wind comes, sometimes it just cuts off the entire tree, uproots it altogether, or shears off one of its branches. That never happens with the bamboo. It can bend, but it never breaks. So that's my spiritual plant energy, so to say. Yeah.
And you see my bamboo right here?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I can show you mine right here.
Thank you so much for thank you so much for that. And my natural impulse is to find the community that wants to take action and wants to stay positively uplifted. And that is my natural gut is telling me there's no use. Like if somebody is in their thing, it's like, and not my job to try to change it, but like to redirect my focus to the people that do want to. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because when you look around, there are more than enough people who want to do what you are doing.
Yes.
So why keep beating your head against the wall, chasing after people who do not want to do what you are doing? So yeah, it's about choosing for yourself. That's what I do. I choose for myself. I don't choose against anybody. I choose for myself. So thank you for the question and the sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So beautiful, Babalola, just so clear, so incredible, so empowering. And more than that, I really breathe that in. In moments, I'll be like, if Babalola can do this, so can I. So thank you for really being an example of that for us all. Melissa, profoundly awesome question. I really enjoyed that. Thank you. Beautiful Terry, you had your hand up, sweetheart. Please ask your question if it's still present, honey. Glad to see you.
Thank you, beautiful Zoe. And Babalola, I just love you. You're my family. Malaika, I just appreciate what both of you have been sharing with us today. My question kind of goes back to the theme of this call, and it's, as spiritual students, we're told it's not spiritual to be an activist or to get involved in politics or to demonstrate. And those of us who are USM grads, we've heard Ron and Mary say, if Earth is a school, our job isn't to change the school. Our job is to, go through our curriculum and learn the lessons and graduate. So how can we balance that from, the way I look at it, if Earth is a school, racism is the bully on the playground right now that's, kicking these kids and putting them in handcuffs. And it's not fair. It's not just. And that part of me that wants justice and wants peace and love that you both were talking about, wants to do something about it. So how do we find that balance of being a spiritual being and being involved in participating in dismantling this, white supremacist and racist system in a way that is loving and kind and that will bring about lasting change?
Thank you, Terry. Full disclosure, Terry is my classmate from USM, so 2004, we rock.
And Holly's on here too.
Yes, Holly too, yes. Okay, thanks for the question. The first thing that comes to my mind, I don't remember if I listened to it in a GR tape or if I read it in a book, but something to the effect that if you see somebody drowning and you tell yourself, I don't have to do anything, maybe it's their karma to drown, did you ever consider that it might be your karma to rescue them from drowning? Okay, so every single thing we do, no matter how tiny, in this direction counts. Each one of us being in this call today, there are 1,000,001 other things we could be doing, right? We chose to sacrifice all of that to be here, to listen, to share, to ask questions, to seek clarification, to learn and trade strategies. So this is all part of the effort that we're bringing into changing this system. My understanding of that thing you said about Ron and Mary talking about how is the school and it is not quite our agenda to change, I would take it to a certain point. It is still part of our agenda to do the bit of it that we could do. But I think what they are referring to is trying to discourage us from thinking we have a God-given mandate to go and change the system overnight. Okay? So that is what I refer to as evolution versus revolution. Evolution is slow, painfully slow, but the end product is exquisitely beautiful. And I have my proof. Just go to any beach in the world and pick up a pebble. Just pick it up and look at it. That thing was not polished in any factory in the world. It's the action of the wave coming in and going back. That's rubbing what used to be a rough stone against rocks, against sand, sometimes for millennia, before that beautifully smooth pebble emerges. That is evolution. So if anything at all, whenever I listen to Rona Mary or any other number of people within our spiritual community say things like that, that is my level of understanding of it. They're trying to encourage us not to take on the revolutionary toga, where you want to change everything overnight, which, by the way, always comes with its own problems and challenges. Go to Cuba, you will understand what I mean, okay? That was a revolution that happened in 1959, and the guy stayed in power until he died. Even when he couldn't speak, he was still in power. That's revolution. But evolution, we keep sandpapering and polishing it. I mean, as bad as things are now that we're talking about George Floyd, if George Floyd happened in 1964, when I was born, who was going to be talking? There was no CNN, there was no Facebook. In fact, many people in Minnesota will not even know that it happened. But here we are now. The action of a 16-year-old girl standing firm in the face of intimidation by a few police officers, not just one, holding that camera steady and capturing the entire thing. I mean, think about it. If that girl had taken a bathroom break and then come back to resume filming, somebody will have said, oh, they cut some things out. But she stood there. As far as I'm concerned, that girl is the yet unsung hero of this thing that we're even protesting and talking about now. So this is part of what we're talking about. It's an evolution of consciousness. I mean, again, there are so many unsung heroes of the Martin Luther era, MLK era, and most of them are white. See, I can understand and appreciate Black people bringing their head for policemen to club them and make them bleed in fighting for the Black cause. I can't tell you enough how blown away I am at white people, the beneficiary of the system that is being protested, standing right in line, presenting themselves to be beaten by the police. And many white people have been doing this through the ages. I bet even during the slave era, there were some white people who would find some runaway slaves and hide them, even at the risk of death to themselves. There are not many, and they certainly wouldn't want anybody to know. But I'm sure there were some of them who were doing that. Oh, the abolitionist movement, I mean, it was predominantly white, standing up against a system that benefited them. So what I'm trying to say is, I don't have any big concern about what big thing can I do. I'm happy to be doing whatever occurs to me to do in the moment. If it's to sit down and spend 2 hours writing a piece that I can post on my Facebook, that counts. If it's to look on somebody's posting and look at somebody else's response and decide, oh no, let's see if we can help you understand this better, I will do that. When I'm motivated to carry the placard and go protest, I will do that. So it's a situation of just constantly responding to the call of spirit. I mean, Joni is on this call, and I know she has devoted her entire life to social justice. I know that. Now, has that brought about racial equality in America? No, but at least as many minds as could be freed from the bondage of racial injustice have been freed. And many of them are out there influencing other people in what I call this evolutionary process. So every single little step counts. I mean, by the way, I know John Roger is an activist in his own way. And I know John Martin definitely is an activist. But I also recognize that when they lead an organization as big as MSI, they have to think about everybody. So that means they may not be able to stand forward and speak as loudly and as often as some of us can do. So let those of us who can do it, let's do it. When I find people within my spiritual community who are coming up with this, yeah, let's just love and say, yeah, You can love to your heart content, and I'm loving right beside you. But my loving does not stop me from saying you have no right to take the life of a human being, knowing that you are being recorded on video. And if you are doing that on video, how many people have you killed in the street corner when nobody was watching, or in the middle of the night? That's why we're protesting. And also, for the most part, this protest are not even about a black policeman, a white policeman killing a black man. If every single time this happens, there are consequences. If those 4 policemen were arrested on that day, I doubt if anybody would be out looting and burning. But it's the fact that you could do that and go home to sleep. I mean, look at the Amadou case. You chase down one person, 3 of you chase down one person. They hit him with their cars at some point. We didn't even see any of that on the video. That came up later from their confessions. And then eventually they trapped him between the 3 of them, 2 in front, 1 in the back. And then they shot him. And then they went home. Look at the Dallas policewoman who went to that young man's apartment and shot him. She went back home. It wasn't until people started crying and protesting that she was arrested. And every single time these incidents occur, one of the first things you're going to hear is a criminal record of the dead person. And then they will release the toxicology report. But have you ever seen anybody release the toxicology report or the trigger-happy policeman? How do we know that that policeman was not on drugs? That was what actually pushed him into pulling his gun rather than pulling his taser. They don't tell us that. That's why people are protesting. So if every single time this happens, there are immediate consequences, there'll be no need to protest. Then we know that, okay, we're not there yet, but we're getting closer. And by the way, sometimes even with all this shout and demonstration and looting and burning, it's dying down now. But let's not fool ourselves. This is phase 1. Phase 2 comes when the indictments and the trials are run and the deadlock, or in the face of all available evidence, the policeman is acquitted anyway. Then there's a phase 2 riot and burning and looting. It's just what happens. So once we have that same treatment be meted out to everybody, black policeman kills a black person, it should be treated like a black criminal killing a black person. White policeman kills a white or black person, it should be treated like a criminal, white or black, killing somebody. That's just the way it should be. Once we get there, then let the killings continue and let the consequences roll up right after the killing. Then we are happy. That's not too much to ask. So we have to be, to participate in activism as much as spirit leads, for those of us who lean in the spiritual realm. And then we just have to play our part and allow other people to play their part and leave the rest for God to settle. That's my approach. And that's what I encourage you to do. And then also, I also encourage that we don't take on unnecessary pain in this process. It's one thing to lean into the feeling, to let the tears flow, but we have to come to a point where we say, okay, we still have a life to live. We still have purposes to fulfill. My family still needs me. Maybe a friend is battling with cancer. I'm not going to say because I'm crying over George Floyd, I'm not going to go give him food or keep him company. So we still have to find a way within ourselves as best we can to balance this whole thing up. It's a challenge, I know that. Otherwise, everybody will be doing it. So I give you credit for whatever part of it you are doing, and you're looking beautiful. So I'm sure you are doing good already. Love you, Terry.
Really beautiful. Thank you, Babalola. I just want to butt in for a quick second because I know there are some folks that do need to take off. I am encouraging everyone to donate at least $10 to the Black Lives Matter movement, and I have put the donation link in the chat. You will also be getting an email from me with this link to donate. It's not mandatory, but if you're called, I have asked Babalola which organization he would love us all to donate to. Eric and I will be donating 200. So either now if you can, and if you need to take off, please know that I will email you that link to support the Black Lives Matter movement. Ross Goodell has asked to share, and I definitely want to get to Joni. I did just want to check in with Malaika to see if you had anything to share in terms of Terry's question, which was a really pivotal, juicy, really heart of what's going on here.
Okay, so yes, probably lots to share. You know, I think there's allowing ourselves permission to be wherever we are. There's a spectrum of activism. Some people are very new to it. Some people are, I remember when I wasn't even sure, I couldn't even say the word God, but I was leaning into something that I knew was for me, surrounded by people who were God lovers, you know, so I allowed there's an allowing yourself to be where you are with it. And I imagine that everybody who's on this call is called in some way to activism, whatever that is and whatever that looks like. And so in so doing, there are some things that I'm just not for. I'm not for shaming. I'm not for any sort of againstness. I am for pointing things out and maybe sort of creating a conversation that is going to be uncomfortable. I'm for that. You know, I am also one who is not at all afraid of losing friends. And interestingly enough, I have so many friends, probably more than I could, but that's another thing. And so that's where I stand in terms of my activism or my loving activism or whatever it's called. But I think at bottom, it's allowing oneself, allowing ourselves to be where we are. And if this is your first step toward that and participating, whoever you are, in participating in this type of dialogue, then that's fantastic. You know, I personally will not allow anyone to tell me how I should be doing activism or my life, but I am open to discussion and conversation, expanding me. I too have a very deeply spiritual practice, and you know, I believe that whatever that is for me in terms of what I read or receive from my teacher or teachers is for me. How I read it, how I receive it, how I interpret it is for me. It's for all of us within a larger context, but it's really for me. And how I'm using that, how I might be standing differently than my friend here who's on the same path is okay, because I'm answering to God. I'm not answering to my friend who I love and who loves me, and we just see it differently, and that's okay because the loving is present. And so I check in with that a lot in terms of my activism. Is the loving present within me and in my relationships and my conversations? So I hope that in some way answered the question. Yeah. So thank you for asking that, Terry.
Really beautiful and just incredibly beautiful question, Terry. I just am so grateful that we're recording this, because I will be making this available. I will be checking in with everyone that asked a question to find out if you'll be okay being in the video, and if not, I will just post the question as a text slide, but I will reach out to all of those people. I did want to, just in order of request, Ross, if you're still with us, I would invite you to share. Oh, sorry, I just remuted you, Ross. Please unmute yourself again, and then we will wrap with Joni. Thank you so much. I can't believe you're all still here. The chat is beautiful. Babalola, if you haven't seen it, I will download it so you can see everyone's beautiful and grateful responses. Ross, please share.
I'll try and keep this brief. I really don't know how to adequately thank you. I expected a great wisdom from you, and you far exceeded even that. I took a lot that you had to say to heart. especially the part about not being in too big a hurry, because I find myself feeling rather impatient about it. I think the time has come to for the United States to start behaving like when I grew up, we believed we were, so many of us, and just do away with any legal support for making Black people second-rate citizens. I will try to slow down and be more effective and paced. There's not much I can do, but maybe try to write. I love you. Thank you also, Malaika. I really appreciated all of this. And thank you, Zoe, for making this available. Thank you. God bless you all.
So beautiful, Russ. Babalola and Malaika, if you have anything, please share. Otherwise, Joni, you are unmuted.
I actually just want to make a comment, and so I'd love to hear Babalola and Malaika wrap up with whatever is present for you. First, I just want to acknowledge the three of you, because Zoe, you as well, but Babalola, every response, oh my God, you are all three demonstrating exactly what you're talking about, which is this beautiful balance between loving and activism, loving and action, loving and being part of the change. And yes, as long as I've had conscious mental memories, I've considered myself a spiritual person in deep relationship with those spiritual beings who guide my life, Christ, some of the folks, those sorts of people. And I've considered myself an activist. And how I answer that question for myself, Terry, because it's come up a lot and I've brought it to my spiritual teachers a lot. We are told in both of the organizations you mentioned to take what works for you and ignore the rest. And we do have a tendency in those organizations to sort of pick the ones that work at the moment. And so I think that even though sometimes folks say, oh, we shouldn't be spiritual and an activist, what I call on is that JR's call, our teachers, my spiritual teacher's call was always to work on your bad habits and to be part of clearing the karma. The two organizations that you mentioned are both centered on clearing the karma. And so right now, if action is about being part of this global karma clearing, I'm all in that. And I look at those spiritual teachers who led those organizations, and I saw them working on bringing down the wall in Germany. I saw them going all over the globe, doing things to heal karma. So the way I always end my little struggle with that, how do I be accepting and loving and work toward change, is knowing that working toward change, if done from a loving, accepting place, is about healing karma. And I'm all in for that. And I just feel like the three of you demonstrated that, and demonstrated that loving and that willingness to do whatever is necessary so beautifully. So thank you so much. And thank you for letting me share. I appreciate it.
Well, Joni, I could speak for a long time how you have inspired me in this space, and I get so touched that I get lost for words. Joni, thank you for just doing everything that you have done for this movement for so long. It's very touching to me. We have so many beautiful things pouring in, gratitudes on the chat, but Malaika, then Babalola, I'd like you to wrap it up for us, just whatever's present, and then we will all just unmute everyone. We get to shout out our love and hugs, and we will call it a day. Malaika, then Babalola, please.
What's present for me is that, this thing that I do, as an activist is, I got to stay strong. I got to be strong. It doesn't mean I'm not feeling the feeling. But now I can relax and I can breathe and I can just say, those feelings have been present this whole time. They have. And it's okay. And I just want to thank you for providing the space, the opportunity, the listening, the sharing. Yeah, Spirit's doing something beautiful. And in each and every one of us here, across the planet, yeah, and beyond perhaps. And thank you for being a part of it and your willingness.
Thank you, Malaika. So let me start by expressing my gratitude to every single person who has sacrificed this time to be here today, to share in this energy, to ask questions, to silently support. I can feel your energies, and I'm very, very grateful for it. There's a story I must tell. And again, it's part of my coming to America. So I grew up at a time in Nigeria where we were all very positive and optimistic about the future of our country. And we all rushed to school. I mean, I'm from a family where the highest value any human being can bring is tied to your qualification, to your academic qualification. So in my family, if you're dating somebody before you ever get married, the first time you come home and say, oh, I have a boyfriend or girlfriend, the next question you're going to hear is, does he have a degree yet? Or is he working towards getting a degree? If the answer is no, you have not even started. If the answer is yes, bring her in, or bring him in. Let's meet him. Okay. So in looking forward to coming to America, I just had this idea that, yeah, there's a whole universe of Nigerians out here, some of them friends from elementary school, high school, or college, who will be willing to support me for a few weeks or months until I got a job. Because I belong to the first generation of Nigerians who benefited from this thing called a visa lottery program. So it's a program that was started by the Clinton administration, where people from different countries that the government then adjudged as being underrepresented in America were allowed to come in legally. So I came in, unlike most people who came before me, who typically will find college admission or obtain a tourist visa, get here and disappear into the crowd until they can find somebody to marry or some other way to legalize themselves. So I left Nigeria with my green card. So I was 100% legal. And I thought, oh, that means the day after I step out from the airplane, I will start working. Well, it turned out not quite like that. So there's this thing called Social Security number that you have to wait a month to get. And then, of course, a few other things before you can even say you get a job. So I got here, my friends, they were nice. They were able to accommodate me because I came first. My wife and daughter were still in Nigeria. So it's getting close for my wife and daughter to come join me. And all my friends made it clear they will not be able to support me and the wife and the kid. I mean, when I say support, I'm not even talking of them giving us money, just giving us a little corner of their house to live in. Well, as God will have it, I'd already established contact with members of my spiritual community out here in Houston, and I've attended seminars. And during the sharing, I placed in the light that I'm having a need for accommodation for myself, my wife, and my daughter, who will soon be coming to join us. Long story short, somebody at that seminar went to work and shared that need with a co-worker. And that co-worker just happens to belong to a church where somebody already told the church leadership that they have a spare room in their house. And if there happens to be a family that needs a place, they should be the first point of call. But the church leadership still took it upon themselves to go fish out some Nigerian family within the church to see if they could help us. And the answer was no. And this family that had a home to give out was a white family, a white man and his wife. They didn't have a kid at that time. So the church linked us up with them. They said, yeah, your room is ready for you. They took us in and we lived with them rent-free for 3 solid months. I mean, it's a fantastic story to tell because these are two people who actually did not even have any extensive exposure to any Black person before this time. But their openness to take not just the Black family, but the Black family that is just coming from Nigeria, I mean, it could be a risky venture, even for a Nigerian to take. So these people just threw open their door, took us in, we just blended in, and that really, really accelerated our settling down in America and our finding our feet. So I'm sharing this story to let you guys understand that for someone like me, feeling queasy or uncomfortable within an all-white environment, it's totally out of the question. I mean, back in Nigeria, I had many white teachers, all the way from high school through college. So I'm exposed to them. I interact with them on a very even, balanced basis. So coming to America, I simply brought that energy along with me. And every single step of the way, God has been so fantastic that all my experiences, white people, black people, Asian people, Hispanic people, have been positive. And even if there are elements of them that are not positive, I still see them with positive eyes anyway. So they end up being positive. And it also challenges me to bring out that same positivity from inside myself when I relate with people, either within my race or outside my race. Because I always remember, listen, people who didn't know you from Adam took you in for 3 months. They gave you the keys to their house. I mean, they will put me in their vehicle and drive me around Houston looking for my first job. I didn't own a car in Nigeria, so I didn't know how to drive when I got here. They taught me how to drive. They took me to my driver's test until I got my license. So I have this vast ocean of positive experiences from as I relate with people across social and racial boundary lines that everything just blurs, and I'm just grateful to God to be able to count every single one of you on this call as my friends, because I think I know virtually everybody. Ross used to be my very good buddy when he was answering the phone at Prana. Danny's my good friend. I mean, I just love all of you, and I appreciate this opportunity. And I just pray that the Spirit of God will continue to show us how to step up and play our part. However little it is, when Spirit calls, we respond, we do it, and we fade back into the background. Let God take all the glory, and then hopefully the more people look at us and listen to us, the more it starts touching that place inside of them where they need to be awakened. And then the more awakened they become, the better our world is. So thank you all for this opportunity. God bless you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Babalola, I can't thank you enough for the words, for the energy. Just this has just been truly so inspiring and so incredible. I will post the link again for anyone that wants to jump off this call right now and make a donation to the Black Lives Matter movement. Again, I will be sending an email out sometimes later today with that link if it's much easier for you to have it in your inbox and action at your own time. Thank you for spending 2.25 hours of beautiful Saturday sunshine to step into greater loving in our lives. Thank you, Malaika. Thank you, Babalola. I'll all continue to email you in terms of how Allowing.Love intends to support this movement, and I'm so grateful. Have a wonderful Saturday. Thank you, everyone. Dr. Babalola, thank you so much. Malika, thank you. I love you both so much.
If you want to unmute and clap, go for it. Thank you, guys. Love you guys so much.
Everybody.
Love you guys. Thank you so much, everyone.
Love you all.
Bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Melissa, let's get in touch, okay?
Right to the Black Lives Matter. The donation today.
Wonderful, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Melissa and Babalola. Babalola just said, let's connect. So I will email you both so that you have each other's contact information. I love you guys. Thank you.
Love you.
Thank you so
God
much.
bless.
Happy weekend. Bye.
Happy weekend.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.